The receipt is a thin, thermal strip of betrayal, wedged in the door pocket of the Mercedes, like a forgotten bone. 11:48 p.m., Midtown Pharmacy. Register 4. 3 units of latex protection. Grant Hale believes he is in Boston, tucked away in a sterile hotel room for a high-stakes merger. But this paper proves he was 3 blocks from our Park Avenue home while I was upstairs, listening to the radiator hiss and waiting for a landed safely text that never came. By morning, he will call this a misunderstanding and let his charisma do the rest. So I lock the receipt into the record before he can rewrite it. This isn't just about marriage, it's about my credibility and the equity I built beside his name. I don't scream. At 54, I have learned that volume is the refuge of the weak. I don't let the metallic chill of the garage air touch my lungs too deeply as I lift my phone. I snap a photo under the dome light, focus sharp, flash off to avoid reflection, then refold the paper along its original deceptive crease. I slide it back into the door pocket, ensuring exactly 1/4 inch of the black strip shows just as he left it. I return to my study, my footsteps silent on the hardwood. I open my encrypted folder, a digital vault where I keep the things Grant thinks I'm too analog to understand. I begin the audit. Grant swore he was in Boston. The receipt says Midtown at 11:48 p.m., so I ask one question. Who needed him close enough to risk being seen? I cross-reference the store number with the city's commercial tax maps and the chain's lease registry. The pin stays exactly where the receipt says it was, Midtown. But the paperwork behind Register 4 doesn't. The leaseholder and billing entity tied to that storefront is Val Holdings, an LLC whose legal address is registered in Greenwich, Connecticut. The twist hits like a physical blow to the sternum. I know the name, and I know what it owns. 5 years ago, I reviewed the compliance paperwork for Vail Holdings. Grant told me it was a blind trust for our retirement, a nest egg protected from market volatility. I had signed the authorization myself, trusting his signature as much as I trusted my own pulse. The GPS data from his car's hidden log confirms the pattern. He hasn't been going to investor meetings. In Connecticut, he has been going home. To a second home, one shielded behind the same corporate shell that's now showing up on a midnight condom receipt. I zoom into the building registry for the Greenwich penthouse unit owned by Vail Holdings. There is a name listed for the secondary occupant, a person authorized for building-wide access. It is Serena Vail, Vail PR, authorized like family, protected like an asset. Grant didn't just cheat. He built a parallel life using my own signature as the foundation. And I just found the key to the front door. The digital footprint of a man's life is never as clean as he thinks, especially when his wife is the one who taught him how to walk. I sit in the blue glow of my MacBook Pro, the light reflecting off the crystal of my Cartier watch. It is 2:15 a.m. The 11:48 p.m. Midtown condom receipt sits beside my keyboard. Page 1 of this file. On the screen, a recurring line item from our joint Val Holdings ledger stares back at me like an unblinking eye. $12,000, quarterly tuition, the Birchwood Academy. Grant told me this account was an aggressive hedge for our retirement, a sacred fund for a future we were supposed to share. Instead, this paper proves he has been funding a legacy that doesn't include me. Tonight, I start pulling the scaffold apart while it's still standing. If I wait, he'll use the fortune I helped build to disappear into that second life. What I'm looking at is fraud, and it has my signature on the foundation. I don't reach for a tissue. I reach for my Mont Blanc pen and a fresh legal pad. I begin the forensic reconstruction of the last 10 years, matching corporate expense logs from Hale Capital against these private wire transfers. I move with the clinical detachment of a surgeon, my fingers steady as I trigger a deep-level metadata sweep of his recent travel receipts. The tuition line item has a name attached: Leo Hale. While I lived by IVF calendars, Grant lived by school calendars, and he paid for them with our shell company. The realization hits with a nauseating rhythmic thud. The $12,000 wasn't just tuition. It was a pattern. While I was injecting hormones and crying in the bathroom of the Ritz-Carlton during our anniversary trip, Grant was downstairs in the business center, wiring the maintenance fees for a 5-bedroom estate in Greenwich. He didn't just have a mistress. He had a family. He didn't just steal my time. He stole my motherhood. I feel a tremor in my chest, a sudden, jagged pain that threatens to break through my professional veneer. I remember the white roses he brought me after the last miscarriage, the way he whispered that we were enough for each other. Now I see those roses for what they were, a distraction, a cheap floral bribe to keep me from looking at the ledger. I don't do outbursts, I do records. I am Evelyn Mercer, and tonight the only thing that matters is what can be proved. I finalized the export of the tuition records and the birth certificate I found buried in a legacy PDF. This is no longer a divorce, it is a corporate execution. Grant isn't just a cheater, he is a liability. As I prepare to close the laptop, a new alert pings on my iPhone. It's a notification from the smart lock at the Greenwich house. A guest has just been authorized for entry at 3 a.m. I check the thumbnail image from the doorbell camera and feel the air leave the room. The woman walking through the front door of my retirement home isn't a stranger. She is the one person Grant swore was his greatest professional regret. The printed image from the security feed lies on my mahogany desk, a grainy, high-contrast portrait of a betrayal I never saw coming. A woman, hooded against the rain, entering the Greenwich house at 3:12 a.m. using a master biometric code. Grant is currently 3 states away, pretending to be a faithful husband on a corporate retreat, while this shadow lives in the house I designed for our old age. Serena is the hinge. If she stays loyal to him past sunrise, she'll be the shield he hides behind. This has moved past heartbreak. It's a fight for my freedom, while he uses a human shield to cover a decade of embezzlement. I do not pick up the phone to scream at him. I pick up my keys and a leather-bound folder containing the wire transfer records I spent all night unearthing. The folded condom receipt rides in the front pocket, timestamp first, story second. I drive through the pre-dawn fog of Manhattan, heading toward a secluded, old-money hotel bar where I know she takes her breakfast, a place where silence is bought and sold with every cup of tea. Serena Vale, my former protégé, my former blind spot. I don't need 3 questions to understand it. I only need to know how long she's been standing between me and the truth. I slide into the booth across from her before she can even lift her spoon. Her face drains of color, the expensive silk of her scarf suddenly looking like a noose. I don't offer a greeting. I simply slide the photo of her at the Greenwich door across the table, followed by a spreadsheet of the $48,000 strategy fees Grant has been funneling into her PR firm. The twist hits her before I even speak. Serena isn't just Grant's mistress, she is his victim. As I watch her eyes dart to the exit, I realize she isn't living in that house out of love. She is living there because Grant has documented every cent of the money she laundered for him. He isn't her lover. He is her blackmailing landlord. She has been trapped in that luxury cage for 5 years, paying for his work trips with her own soul to keep herself out of prison. The pain of her betrayal is sharp, a jagged reminder of the girl I once trusted, but the satisfaction of seeing her fear turn into desperate hope is what keeps me upright. I see the moment she realizes I am not here to destroy her. I am here to offer her an exit. I don't do scenes. I do leverage. I'm compliance. Apologies don't move markets. Documentation does. I have the full audit, Serena, I say, my voice as cold and steady as the marble floor beneath us. I know about the shell accounts. I know Grant forced you to sign the leases, and I know you have the original contracts he tried to burn. I lean in, the scent of her expensive perfume clashing with the sterile reality of the legal folder. You have 60 minutes to decide if you want to be Grant's co-defendant in a federal fraud case, or if you want to be the star witness who helps me burn his kingdom to the ground. I stand up, leaving her with the bill and the weight of a decade of lies. As I walk toward the door, my phone vibrates with a text from an unknown number. It's a photo of Grant in Miami, laughing with a woman I've never seen, but it's the caption that makes my blood turn to ice. He's not just spending your money, Evelyn. He's selling your secrets. The file is a sequence of alphanumeric death sentences, glowing against the dark screen of my tablet. A data export log showing 3 gigabytes of proprietary compliance protocols sent to an offshore server at 2:14 a.m. yesterday. Grant is currently adjusting his tie in the reflection of the glass boardroom doors. preparing to tell the partners that my unstable emotional state has compromised the firm's security. He's about to brand me unstable and walk out with a golden parachute. I put the export log on the table now, before he can speak. I'm not saving a marriage in that room. I'm protecting the firm I guarded for 2 decades, and the legacy I built from nothing. I don't wait for the chairman to invite me in. I walk into the boardroom, with one printed exhibit clipped to my folder, the Midtown Condom receipt that started this audit, my heels striking the marble like a countdown, and place the tablet in the center of the mahogany table. I don't look at Grant. I look at the board members who have spent years calling him a visionary. Someone authorized emergency maintenance that bypassed dual auth while I was supposedly incapacitated by grief. That isn't an error. It's a coordinated deletion, and it's the kind of move that always leaves a trail. The silence in the room is heavy, suffocating Grant as he tries to find a smile that isn't a lie. The twist hits him when the chairman speaks, not to me, but to the 2 men in dark suits standing by the windows. The board wasn't waiting for my instability report. They had already received the signed subpoena Serena delivered an hour ago. Grant didn't just sell secrets to a mistress. He sold the firm's proprietary trading algorithms to a competitor to cover the massive losses in the Vail Holdings shell accounts. I see the color leave his face, a slow, gray draining of a man who realized his leverage just turned into a noose. He tries to reach for my hand, his voice dropping into that familiar velvet register he uses for donors. Ev, we can fix this. It was for our future. I pull my hand away before his skin can touch mine. I keep it procedural. Exhibit, signature, timestamp. I'm not here as your wife, Grant, I say, my voice echoing with a coldness that terrifies the room. I'm here as the senior compliance officer, and according to Article 4 of the partnership agreement, the one I enforced, your equity is hereby forfeited for cause. The satisfaction isn't just in his firing. It's in the silence of the men who used to laugh at his jokes now looking at him like a virus. He is now penniless in a room that only values wealth. As security steps forward to escort him out, Grant turns, his eyes wild with a desperate last-second malice. You think you won? Serena isn't the only one who knows what's in that sealed FedEx envelope, Evelyn. If I go down, the truth about your father's accident goes with me. The room freezes. The air in my lungs turns to ice. My hand instinctively goes to the locked drawer where the envelope sits, and for the first time in this war, my fingers begin to shake. The sealed FedEx envelope sits on the crystal podium of the Metropolitan Museum's Grand Hall. Its white and purple cardboard edges feeling like a lead weight under my hand. Within these fibers lies a document Grant claims will destroy my father's legacy. A secret he intended to trade for my silence and his freedom. My husband is currently standing in the 3rd row, his face a mask of practiced charm, believing he has me cornered in front of the very elite who funded our rise. I can't let him weaponize my father's name in front of the people who funded our rise. What started as a midnight receipt has turned into a 20-year autopsy of the story he built around me. I don't look at the crowd, nor do I look at Grant. I signal the AV technician to mirror my tablet to the 3-story high projection screens behind me and place the sealed envelope directly onto the document scanner. The room, filled with the scent of $5,000 lilies and heavy silk, goes into a deathly hush. My father's accident wasn't random, it was profitable. Grant thought my grief made me manageable. He forgot my entire career is built on recognizing forged stories. The scanner whirs, and the screen flickers to life. The audience gasps, but not for the reason Grant expected. The document isn't a confession of my father's negligence. It is a series of wire transfers dated 20 years ago. The records show a young Grant Hale paying a private investigator to manufacture the very proof of my father's guilt that Grant used to save me with back then. He didn't protect my father's memory. He created the stain so he could pretend to wash it away. He didn't marry me out of love. He married a woman he had successfully blackmailed into eternal gratitude. The satisfaction of watching his face collapse in the glow of the projection is more intoxicating than the vintage wine sitting untouched on the tables. He isn't just a cheater or a thief. He is the architect of my life's greatest tragedy. I see the board members he spent years courted now recoiling as if he were a leper. I keep my composure. I keep my voice level. Just a clean record. I've audited the last 20 years and found one consistent fraud. Grant Hale. I'm not here to ask for your donations tonight, I say, my voice echoing through the hall with the weight of a gavel. I'm here to return a stolen legacy. I look directly at Grant as the process servers I hired step out from behind the marble pillars. As the first officer places a hand on Grant's shoulder, a notification pings on my tablet, mirrored for everyone to see. It's an email from a private investigator I hired to track the envelope's origin. It wasn't sent by Serena Vale or Grant. The sender's name at the bottom of the screen makes the microphone slip from my hand because she is the one woman who should have been dead for 10 years. The name Isabella Hale on the digital display is a ghost story told in high-resolution pixels. A certificate of life, stamped by a foreign consulate 48 hours ago, proving the woman Grant buried 10 years ago is very much alive. Grant is currently being read his rights in the back of a sedan, his face pressed against the window as he watches his social standing dissolve into the Manhattan rain. The clock is legal, not emotional. Within the hour, I trigger the clause that turns him from spouse to defendant. This isn't about a broken home anymore. It's about erasing a man who turned my life into a long con. I don't pause to weep over the decade I spent mourning a sister-in-law who wasn't dead. The first domino was still that 11:48 p.m. Midtown condom receipt. Because men like Grant always leave a paper trail. I walk into our empty Park Avenue library, the air still smelling of his cologne and his even more expensive lies, and I open the heavy leather binder containing our original partnership deeds. I don't wait for a court date. I trigger the automatic liquidation of all Vale Holdings assets based on the criminal indictment for insurance fraud now being filed at the precinct. Isabella isn't a ghost. She's a living witness. Grant staged her death because it was cheaper than a payout, and because it kept me loyal to a lie. The silence of the penthouse is the most satisfying sound I've heard in 20 years. The twist hits like a gavel when my attorney calls. Grant didn't just fake Isabella's death. He used her life insurance payout to fund the very first investment I ever signed off on. Every brick of my home, every piece of art on these walls, was bought with the dirty money of a woman he convinced the world was a ghost. He didn't just betray our marriage, he made me the unwitting treasurer of his most despicable crime. I feel a cold, sharp clarity settling in my marrow, replacing the hollow ache of the gala's revelation. I don't bargain, I file. I am a senior compliance officer, and I am currently presiding over the total bankruptcy of Grant Hale's existence. I sign the final order, transferring the Greenwich property in the Manhattan penthouse into a protected trust in Isabella's name and my own, effectively making Grant a trespasser in his own life. I am stripping him of his roof, his name, and his history. By dawn, he will have nothing left but a state-issued jumpsuit and the bitter memory of a woman who was far too smart to be managed. As the sun begins to bleed over the East River, my phone chimes with a video file from a secure, untraceable server. I press play, and a woman's voice, weathered by a decade of hiding but still firm, speaks directly to me. He thinks he's the only one who kept a ledger, Evelyn, but I kept the tapes from the night your father fell. And you're not going to believe who was actually holding the camera. The video file is a grain of digital salt in a 20-year-old wound, playing on a continuous loop in the corner of my encrypted screen. A 6-second clip from a hidden vantage point showing the ledge where my father stood and the shadow of the person holding the camera. Grant is currently waking up on a polyester bedsheet in a $20 a night motel on the edge of the Jersey Turnpike, the smell of grease and stale cigarettes replacing the cedar and leather air of our Park Avenue library. I track his descent the way I once tracked our portfolio. If he crawls back into the light, he'll sell whatever secret he has left. This isn't a corporate execution anymore. It's survival. He's a cornered animal without a trust fund, and he's dangerous. I don't waste a second on pity. I sit in my quiet high-floor office, watching the real-time geolocation of his mobile device and the steady stream of access denied alerts hitting my terminal. Grant just tried to use his master fob to enter a private vault in Midtown, only to realize I've had the tumblers changed and the biometric signatures wiped. My father didn't lose his footing by chance. Someone filmed it. Grant kept an illegal recording as collateral for our marriage, and he called it protection. The satisfaction of watching his scramble is a cold, clinical joy. The twist hits like a heart attack when the video clarity is enhanced. The hand holding the camera is wearing a ring with the seal of the Board of Risk Chair, the very man who just presided over Grant's firing. Grant didn't act alone 20 years ago. He was the apprentice to a much larger monster, and they've both been living off the interest of my father's accident ever since. Grant isn't just a failure, he is a loose end that the chair is now trying to cut. I feel a jagged thrill of realization, the kind that only comes when the audit is finally complete. I don't need theatrics, I need facts. I am a senior compliance officer, and I am no longer just liquidating a marriage. I am dismantling a conspiracy that spans 2 decades and 3 generations of Wall Street greed. I watch Grant's signal move toward a luxury dealership in Queens. He is trying to sell the car he stole from our garage, unaware that I've already flagged the title as stolen asset in the National Registry. He is about to walk into a lobby of cameras and high-end sales associates, thinking he can trade a Mercedes for a bus ticket to obscurity. As I reach for my coffee, a frantic, unencrypted message flashes on my screen from a burner phone. It's Grant. Ev, please? They're coming for me. It wasn't just me on that roof. If I die, you'll never find the original tapes. My hand is steady as I type the only response he deserves. I don't need the tapes, Grant. I have the metadata. The archive box is a leaden gray container, sitting on my gallery table like a paperweight. Inside, the original 1996 insurance settlement for my father's industrial accident bears the secondary signature of the lead risk evaluator, the same hand that signed my wedding card 20 years later. Grant is currently begging for a plea deal in a windowless room at the precinct, while the man who signed this paper, the risk chair, is walking toward me with a glass of champagne, believing his silence is a commodity I'm still willing to buy. 10 minutes. That's the window before the risk chair can spin my donation into his PR. This isn't about Grant's infidelity or shell companies anymore. It's about reclaiming a truth that was stolen before I even knew how to audit a ledger. Yet it still traces back to the same starting point, a condom receipt that placed him in Midtown when he swore he was out of town. I don't tremble as I stand before the Assembly of New York's cultural elite. I announce the donation of the Hale collection. Every painting, every sculpture, and every rare book Grant used to signal his status to a foundation dedicated to victims of financial coercion. I watch the risk chair's smile falter as he realizes I am liquidating the very assets he used to launder our firm's dark pool profits. My godfather wasn't protecting me. He was managing me. If he held the camera, then my entire career was curated to keep me from opening the wrong file. The twist turns the air in the gallery to ice. The risk chair isn't just my mentor. He is the man who adopted my career specifically to ensure I would never look at the 1996 archives. He funded my education, mentored my rise, and even handpicked Grant to marry me, all to keep the auditor inside the family. He didn't just watch my father die, he raised me as a living monument to his own cleverness. I don't grandstand. I put the report on the record. I file the conflict of interest report that has been sitting in my throat for 20 years. I step down from the podium and walk directly toward him, the gray archive box tucked under my arm. The audience is still applauding my generosity, unaware that they are witnessing a social execution. I lean in close, the scent of his expensive cigar smoke hitting me like a memory of my childhood. I found the original metadata on the 1996 scan, the risk chair. I whisper, my voice as sharp as a paper cut. It wasn't a manual camera, it was a firm-issued digital prototype. The serial number is registered to you. I press a small silver thumb drive into his palm, the gift that contains the indictment I've already sent to the district attorney. As I walk away, I hear the sound of a champagne glass shattering against the marble floor, a final, fragile punctuation mark to a 20-year lie. I exit the gallery and step into the cold night air of the Upper East Side. My phone buzzes with an alert from the bank. A final, massive wire transfer has just been blocked. But it isn't from Grant or the risk chair. It's from an account I thought I closed when my mother died, and the destination address is a location I haven't seen in 3 decades. The sentencing order is a heavy, cream-colored document with a raised judicial seal that feels like a cold weight in my hand. At the bottom, the judge's signature marks the end of Grant's freedom. 15 years in a federal facility for embezzlement, fraud, and interstate conspiracy. Grant is currently standing in the center of the courtroom, his once expensive wool suit hanging off a frame that has withered under the stress of the last 2 weeks. I won't give him a last sentimental plea to work with. I keep my face blank and let the sentence speak. This case began with a pharmacy receipt and ends with the destruction of a criminal empire. My feelings are irrelevant to the record. I do not look at him as the bailiff step forward. I look at the district attorney and hand over the final thumb drive containing the unencrypted metadata from the 1996 server. I don't wait for Grant to find my eyes. I turn my back on him, my heels clicking a steady, rhythmic cadence on the floorboards as I walk toward the exit. The silence after my father's accident wasn't peace. It was strategy. They raised me in luxury so I wouldn't question the foundation, and they assumed I'd never learned to pick the lock. The courtroom doors swing open, but the satisfaction doesn't come from Grant's muffled sob. The twist hits like a physical shock when the FBI lead investigator stops me in the hallway. The wire transfer from my mother's dead account wasn't a hack. It was a recurring automated payment set up 15 years ago, triggered to release only when Grant's biometric access to the Val Holdings vault was permanently revoked. My mother didn't die of a broken heart. She was liquidated from our lives because she had gathered the very proof I just used to bury Grant. She had known about the wrist chair's camera since 1996, and she had spent the last 3 years of her life building a digital fail-safe trigger to protect me. I don't perform relief. I stay on the record. I am a senior compliance officer, and I have just realized my mother didn't vanish. She executed a long game to keep me alive. I walk out of the courthouse and into the gray afternoon light of Lower Manhattan. Grant is being loaded into a transport sedan, his name already being scrubbed from the firm's digital directory. He is now a discarded asset, a line item that has been successfully written off. As I settle into the back of my own car, my phone buzzes with a final geolocation ping from the Vermont address. It isn't a nursing home. It is a private medical facility funded by a trust I never knew existed. I open the facility's patient directory on my tablet, and the photo that loads isn't of a stranger. It is a woman with my eyes, sitting in a garden, holding a copy of the very same 1996 audit report I thought was lost in the fire. She isn't just a memory. She's waiting for me to finish the job. The original 1996 audit report is no longer a cold digital file. It is a physical stack of yellowed pages, heavy with the scent of lavender and the pressure of a mother's handwriting. My mother's script, sharp, elegant, and uncompromising, fills the margins with the one truth that Grant, the risk chair, and the entire board of Hale Capital tried to bury under 20 years of luxury. Grant is a prisoner of the state, and the risk chair is a prisoner of his own ruined reputation. But I am standing in a Vermont garden to reclaim the only asset that cannot be liquidated. The woman who taught me how to count. I could stay behind my armor and call it survival. Or I can cross this grass and choose the only thing that matters. My mother. I step out of the car, my heels sinking into the soft soil, and walk toward the figure sitting under a willow tree. I don't run. I move with the measured, rhythmic pace of a senior officer who has already closed the case. Now the breadcrumb trail is obvious. The condom receipt, the ledger, the locks. My mother didn't wait to be saved. She waited for the moment I would follow evidence instead of fear. The twist hits me as she turns, her smile a mirror of the one I see in the glass every morning. My mother didn't just wait to be found. She orchestrated the catalyst. She was the one who intercepted Grant's mail and ensured that particular receipt, the one pointing to his secret family, found its way into my hands. She knew that Grant's sloppy arrogance was his greatest weakness, and my obsession with compliance was my greatest weapon. She didn't just hope I would save her. She audited my character for 15 years and bet everything on the fact that I would never stop looking for the truth. There's no cinematic reunion speech, just verified truth. Later, on the deck of my new home in the Hamptons, the Atlantic roars, indifferent to the empires we dismantled. I watch her hand me a lighter, and together we begin to feed the fire. We burn the 1996 audit. We burn the surveillance photos. We burn the ledger of Val holdings. Watching the paper curl into black ash is the most cathartic transaction of my life. The audience of my peers will see a woman who tragically lost her husband to a federal indictment, but I see a woman who finally retired from the war. Grant is sitting in a cell, waiting for a phone call that will never come, and I am finally sitting in the sun with a cup of tea and the mother I thought was a ghost. The truth doesn't need volume. It just needs a paper trail that leads you home. I look at the sunrise over the water and realize that for the first time in 20 years, the only thing I have left to audit is my own happiness. The embers in the fireplace are the only things left glowing in this room, a quiet archive for 20 years of deceptions. My mother is upstairs, finally sleeping in a bed that doesn't feel like a hiding place. For the first time in my adult life, the silence isn't a threat. It is a promotion. Grant Hale is exactly where a failed asset belongs, stripped of his name and forced to face a reality he can no longer charm. I am no longer an auditor of grief. I am simply a woman who owns her own time. The sunrise over the Hamptons is a relief, because I know that from now on, the only thing I need to audit is my own happiness. In my world, the audit never truly ends. It's not because I speak more. It's because the evidence speaks for me. That's a different case, but the opening is familiar. A gym bag left accidentally unzipped, a clinic receipt tucked under a towel, and a stapled pharmacy pickup slip inside a sealed prescription bag for STI treatment, STD meds. No readable words. Just the shape of the label, the amber bottle, and a date that matches the 11:48 p.m. Midtown condom receipt down to the week. I don't confront, I document. Next evidence, the meds. And the truth they were meant to erase.